Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our second public listening session for the Colorado Water Plan. I'm Elizabeth Scoder. I'm the Community Outreach Specialist with the Water Supply Planning section at CWCB. Before I get into anything tonight, I am really excited to turn things over to Alejandro with the Community Language Collaborative to explain how live interpretation is going to work tonight. So I will turn things over to you, Alejandro. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here with you all. My name is Alejandro with Community Language Cooperative. As was mentioned, I'm going to give you instructions and I will do so in Spanish first. So if you are a non-Spanish speaker, bear with me and I'll come back and repeat them in English. Hola a todos, gracias por tenerme aquí con ustedes. Mi nombre es Alejandro Arrieta, seré su intérprete el día de hoy. Nos gustaría practicar la justicia del lenguaje lo más posible y por esa razón tenemos la interpretación simultánea. Si ustedes prefieren escuchar en español, después de estas instrucciones las voy a repetir en inglés, pero después cuando termine vamos a aprender el icono de interpretación. Va a aparecer un icono de mundo o globo en la parte inferior a mano derecha en tu pantalla. Puedes seleccionarlo, de ahí escoger el español y también pueden poner el audio original en mudo justo abajo para que solamente escuchen en el idioma de su preferencia. Y tengan un poco de paciencia en lo que repito esto en inglés. Alrighty, so this one is for all of my English speakers out there. If you are a monolingual English speaker or you prefer English or you are not fluent in Spanish, then you also need interpretation for today's event. The reason why we have simultaneous interpretation is because we want to practice language justice as much as possible. And because we know that this space is most likely going to be bilingual, we want everybody to be prepared. We want to make sure that everyone is able to speak in the language of their heart. And if for you that's English, after these instructions, you're going to see a globe icon appear on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. That's the icon for interpretation. Go ahead and click on that. Then you'll select English and you'll hit mute original audio right below that, so that you only listen to the language of your preference rather than both, as that can be a little bit confusing. I'll go ahead and send these instructions in writing in the chat in case it's helpful. Then we'll turn that on, select your language, and we'll test audio to get going. Voy a mandar esto en escrito en los mensajes de chat por si les ayuda, pero de ahí seleccionamos el idioma para comenzar. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you, Alejandro. I'm going to go ahead and start and enable the interpretation function. So again, I just encourage everyone, even if you are an English speaker, to select English or Spanish, whichever language you want to hear this session in. That way, if someone chooses to make a public comment in Spanish, you will be able to hear the English interpretation of that. All right. Next slide, please. So tonight is our second public listening session for the community. We had our first listening session on July 27th. You can go back and view that on our CWCB YouTube channel. And we have two more coming up after this on September 1st and September 28th. They'll be on Zoom as well from 4 to 6 p.m. We encourage everyone to come to those as well. And each of these sessions is generally organized around the 4 action areas that the water plan is organized around. But we absolutely welcome any comments or questions from any of these areas at any of these. Next slide. And just to give a brief overview, and first, sorry, I'm going to just do a quick sound check with Alejandro and make sure that is working. Russ, would you mind going into the Spanish channel and just making sure that that is going well and giving me a thumbs up? Or Kat, maybe.
I was just in there. It's working.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Jeff. Perfect. All right. So just a brief. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to go ahead and test my audio on the English channel just in case while we were at it.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, so just a brief overview of the agenda for tonight's listening session. We're going to start out this session with an overview of the water plan, specifically the resilient planning section, and also hear from one of our partners that is helping expand our education and outreach and efforts throughout Colorado communities. We have Fernando with CREA Results here tonight as well. And then we'll turn things over to Stacy Bowe with Strategic by Nature for the remaining about 80 minutes of this listening session. And that is really to hear from all of you and get a chance to hear each other's comments as well. So Stacy will, after the presentations, will kind of give a rundown of the logistics of how to give public comment and just the ground rules with that. So with that, I will, oh, one other thing I wanted to do is, I know we have a lot of CWCB staff that you won't hear from, but are here listening. So I just want to invite them to put their name and title in the chat, just so the public can see who is here representing CWCB staff. And with that, I want to turn it over to Russ Bands, who is the Section Chief for Water Supply Planning. Thanks so much, Russ.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for joining us tonight. And Elizabeth, you're at least how my Zoom is set up tonight, I can really only see you. So if you can give me the signal if I'm speaking too fast, that would be great. And I'm gonna, okay. So yeah, wanted to give you all a little bit of an overview of water plan tonight as a lead up to some of the presentation. For those who joined us on the previous meeting, you may have heard this, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about is pre-recorded and up online too, just to make that available to anyone that wants to listen to it, or if you missed something tonight and want to hear it. This meeting will be recorded. Our last one was recorded. It's up online, as well as some of those other recordings. Just a little bit of orientation, just to who are we when we say Russ Bands with CWCB, what's the Colorado Water Conservation Board? Our group is a policy agency. We're one of many agencies across the state, but one important feature is, as policy agency, we don't really construct projects per se. We do fund a lot of projects, and a lot of the good work that goes on is at the grassroots level. A lot of what we do in Colorado is, right? It's a local control state, and you know, what you do in your communities is incredibly important. And with water, building or working on local water projects, whether that's a stream management plan or agricultural project, our municipal effort is all critically needed, and maybe more than ever, projects that work together and to uplift all those areas. So our mission is to conserve, develop, protect, and manage Colorado's water for present and future generations. And this is a bit of a legacy. I would say, our legacy goes back much further, but really building on a lot of the good work that led up to and was published in the first water plan in 2015. And because that's a living document, we have kind of subsequent updates to that plan that we make. Some of that to look at the technical data behind it, and some of it just to check on where we're at, what we need to focus on more, and really pause to get public input, which is part of what you're doing here with us tonight. This is just that graphic that shows just how many groups there are across the state, how many sections of government in Colorado. But on that bottom line, if you're able to read really closely, you'll probably be able to pick out. I know it's super tiny. I'm joking, but you'll be able to pick out the Department of Natural Resources, and we're nested under them as the Colorado Water Conservation. So again, critically important is one agency among maybe something close to 200. It's we have a certain role, and as a policy agency, sometimes we have certain parameters that we work in, but we don't necessarily have to be constrained by that. This has always been one of my favorite quotes from Russ George, but consensus can move mountains. And us working together, whether that's on water conservation efforts or to kind of think about areas that we need to focus on, is certainly a piece of that. And I'm also love this quote from Chairman Hart, that change comes from people, and you really drive it. I think it's been said a few different times, but the water plan is just a plan if people aren't out there helping implement it. And a lot of the good work and some of the themes you'll hear from me tonight are just how important it is, whether we're talking about local projects or local involvement, to really have grassroots efforts helping push and drive for the changes that we need to see. So where CWCB helps as a policy agency, where our strengths are really in convening, collaborating, funding projects, leading and focusing attention on certain efforts. Really, the water plan acts as a bit of a megaphone for that. What are the important things that we need to focus on in the state? And we do a lot in the way of creating support and development, or developing tools that can be support for local stakeholders to help advance local initiatives. I will remind you, we talked a little bit about that history, and it is a rich history that's really built on stakeholder involvement all along the way. So the first water plan got something like 30,000 comments, and we really never stopped getting those comments. And at each kind of successive turn, we've continued to get input from our stakeholders at various intervals along the way, pretty consistently. And we also have the roundtables who we work with, or just any other means of public comment that come to us through email or other ideas, or in our board meetings. And we take that to heart, and we kind of fold that in where we can make changes. And so you're just kind of getting a flavor here, but those big pieces of the original water plan, us working on the technical data and updating that in 2019, that feeding into the basin implementation plan. So the 9 basin roundtables created 8 basin implementation plans. That's really the local
que son los planes de implementación y están
is seeing as critical needs in their basin. And then rolling up into the water plan, which is what we're talking about tonight. I will say the water plan builds on, again, the same values that were in that 2015 plan. These are the Colorado water values. They're really just the things that make Colorado great. So a productive economy that supports vibrant, sustainable cities, agriculture, recreation, and tourism, an efficient and effective water infrastructure system, strong environment with healthy watersheds, rivers, streams, and wildlife. And then critically important was kind of a footnote in the original water plan, really. It's underneath these values was maybe the first sentence that was read, but it talks about the rich history of the water plan, really kind of being born out of, and many of the things we do as an agency, the 2002 drought, and then what was at the time the biggest fire in the state, the Hayman Fire in 2002. And that really had a profound effect on the state and led to a lot of whether it's the creation of the roundtables or the first technical analysis that looked at what our future water needs would be, or even ultimately in 2015, the water plan. And so we kind of codified that thought process of just recognizing that resilience is really at the heart of the water plan. And to be resilient, and we took this and borrowed from our partner agency, DOLA, but an informed public with creative, forward-thinking solutions that are sustainable and resilient to changing conditions and result in strong, equitable communities that can adapt to and thrive in the face of adversity. So those values really underpin the water plan. And as we're thinking about the water plan, we've showed this slide before, but it's really, we think about this as operating 2 spaces. On some level, as I noted, the water plan is the biggest megaphone we have to set this stage for collaboration, resilience, how we can focus on mitigating future risk. And it shines a light on these critical issues and really the fact that we need to work together and increasingly find new ways to do that inclusively that bring everybody to the table. On a more simple level, it's a strategy guide for CWCB. It's our strategy document that highlights the things that we're going to work on. And so to kind of better reflect that in this version of the water plan, we frame up 50 partner actions. Those are really the examples of the things that you can do, primarily framed up around grant making and the grants that we offer. So there are kind of 5 buckets of water plan grants that were developed after the original water plan came out, and we still work with those and fund projects in these areas. But those 50 partner actions are examples of the types of good work we know that we could fund and need to see in the state. They shouldn't feel limiting at all. It's really, anybody could come in for a grant, and it's limited by, maybe the context of these categories of water plan grant funding, but really by the creativity and imagination of the types of projects, whether they're tried and true or bleeding edge projects that people want to bring to us to try to advance and work at the local level. And then there are 50 agency actions. Those are the things that CWCB are committing to getting done. Again, largely in that space I explained, the kinds of things that we can do to support local stakeholders and really align with the work that we have done since the agency was created in 1937 and continued today. But they're also, one of the criticisms we got on the first plan was a lack of clarity around some of the actions. And we tried to clean that up both by taking all the the things that were called actions that maybe were more statements. Supporting local science, for example, would be something that we carried forward as a statement in this plan. But if it's an agency action, we really try to be clear about who owned that. And in some cases, they're co-led by our other partner or collaborating agencies. So we work with groups like the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, Department of Local Affairs, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, Colorado Department of Agriculture, and so on and so forth. Those groups together have kind of committed to helping us advance many of the actions in the plan, and in some cases are leading them. At the end of the day, the water plan is ultimately, ultimately owned by all of us, but as an agency, we're kind of primarily responsible for advancing it. So many of the actions are things that are through the lens of what CWCB can do. As Elizabeth noted in the beginning, there are 4 action areas. This is a more simple way of laying out just how to organize the water plan, but vibrant communities, whether it's our smallest or our biggest cities or towns, some of those may be very rural towns, but it's all things municipal water use, robust agriculture, thinking about our acequia communities, thinking about local foods, whether that's orchards or whether that's our farms or ranches, all things agriculture. Thriving watersheds is the space we talk about watersheds at a higher level, and then kind of beneath that, forest health, rivers, river health, environment and recreation, our aquatic species. And then the topic for tonight's focus is resilient planning. This was really an attempt to kind of more squarely carve out a place to talk about climate adaptation and realize that if we're going to be adaptive to our future water needs, recognizing that climate change goes hand in hand with water change, that we really need to have an informed public. And an informed public means incorporating everyone. It also is the space that we talk a little bit about, supportive or smart government and the ways that we can help, whether that's through funding or cutting red tape or making sure that we're being inclusive. And the critical role that education plays in that, and through a lot of our local stakeholders that help us with a lot of those efforts. So those are the 4 areas of the plan. Each of those have a vision that's kind of all really going to lead up to support those values that we talked about, those 4 value areas. But this is the one for resilient planning. Really a thought process here of kind of focusing on how to improve water security, drought resilience, how we focus on, again, on being more inclusive and recognizing to be resilient to our future, we have to have equity. We have to work together more than ever now, especially given the magnitude of our challenges. And just highlighting some of the challenges we have when we think about the water plan, we talk about this 740,000 or up to a 740,000 acre foot gap. That's just focusing on the municipal gap. And you're seeing some of these numbers. I highlight this here just because we've gotten some input on this, but the graph on the left that you're seeing, the pie chart, is really talking about the total use at the end of the day that each of these sectors use. So if we're talking about agricultural use or municipal, industrial water use, whereas in the right, and this was called out as it's a bigger number, we're really talking about the deliveries. So there are return flows that happen. We have huge demand for deliveries, and along the way, whether that's water returning to streams from irrigation or potentially water loss, or just coming out of a water treatment plant at the end of the system and going back to return to flows, there's just a smaller portion that actually is consumed in those cities. But either way, we have a huge demand, and how we fill those future needs or those gaps that we think about, the difference between what we might need in the future and what we're able to deliver today, how we meet those gaps is critical. And bringing everyone together to think about that in a way that uplifts all of those sectors and as many people as we can is going to be critical. It's going to make or break the difference for how Colorado grows and how we grow together. And doing that the smartest way, I think, is in all of our best interests. So this is kind of a simplified graphic, but one of the things in the water plan, and kind of speaks to why we have these interval updates, is we looked at the scenario planning process. Scenario planning is this kind of looking at the future and realizing that we can't just pick one spot we're going to be, but we're probably going to be in a range, and different things might come and conspire to change what that future use is going to be. So we have scenarios that hopefully are capturing maybe what a high water need might be and a low water need might be. And so this is where we get that 740,000 acre foot gap, annual gap by 2050 in that highest scenario. And one thing I will point out here is we do have climate change. I think some of the comments that we've already seen come in maybe are not seeing that in the plan, but it is very much a backbone of the plan, talking about how in our scenarios we account for climate change. We're using the same underlying data that we use in the state climate plan, and really showing up to that we've already warmed, and then we could warm in our scenario planning and modeling another 4.2 degrees Fahrenheit by 2050. But if you look at this next scenario, and I love this kind of quote, we talked about climate change is water change, but we have that same temperature increase in this second scenario from the last there, scenario D. But we're seeing that it has added water conservation, and the even just a 10% water conservation savings across the state, across the sectors, really has a tremendous impact on what our future needs are going to be. So as we think about what our future needs are, there are many ways we can reach that. There is no one way to solve the challenges we have. It can't be all storage, can't be all conservation, but we do see that water conservation has a tremendous impact. And it will take all of the collaborative solutions we can in making each drop of water stretch as far as it can and work for as many people as it can along the way in as many sectors. So I'm kind of closing up here. We'll just say that as you're looking at the water plan, and we kind of have this commit or comment, commit, share mantra, and we've been saying that because by all means, if there's something that we could say better, or that you're seeing that you think is not correct, or you want to change, or you have a thought about in the water plan, please tell us. And you're here tonight to help do that. But what we really hope is that we would get maybe not 30,000 comments, but 30,000 commitments to action is the kind of progressive change that we're going to need in the state to advance the projects. We have unprecedented levels of funding now, and are really in the time is right to move some of these projects forward, move local initiatives forward, get involved with water. That's the kind of commitment we're looking for. And then share your story. If you've done a great project or you have something that you want to say about water, please go to engagecwcb.org and share that story with us. So I will just highlight in the kind of commit category, we want to meet people where they're at. And sometimes, Russ Sand sitting in Denver, maybe the best thing that I can be doing on any given day is just practicing personal water conservation. And that's something that all of us can do. And we have to double down on that now more than ever. There is an amazing campaign our partner group, Water Education Colorado, is helping lead, called Water 22. And they have a list of kind of 22 ways that you can conserve water indoors and outdoors at home. But also just get involved with local issues. Come to meetings like this, go to a roundtable meeting, go to a board meeting, a CWCB board meeting, or get involved with a local NGO on water issues. Know those local issues, because when opportunities come up that you have a chance to share your voice at the local level, those are often, and sometimes state level, often just so critical and important that you are engaged with those opportunities and recognize the impacts that those decisions may have on you. And last but not least, but one big theme in the water plan is to apply for grants. And of course, there's many ways you can do that. You can certainly find out more information on Engage CWCB or our website, our main CWCB website. And there are many agencies across the state that offer grants, but specific to the water plan, we certainly want to help advance the thoughts that we're including in the plan and see progress there. So we appreciate your support in that. And with that, I will turn things over and bring up Fernando Pineda-Reyes' slides, but just what an awesome partner he and his team is. But we wanted to carve out some time tonight to have him speak and just talk about all the great ways he's really helping us reach out to BIPOC communities and really try to make a good faith effort to help carry this message to everyone that we can reach. So Fernando, I'll turn things over to you, and you can just tell me next slide when you like.
Oh, thank you very much. We're pleased to join you in this venture. And my name is Fernando Pineda, and I'm the Executive Director of CREA Results. We're an organization of community health workers in Colorado. We call ourselves Promotores de Salud in Spanish. And we are very pleased to be part of this great effort. As our name starts, which stands for Community Research, Education, and Awareness. And we believe that when we put it together, we generate the results. So this program is not outside of our everyday conversation. We believe that the magic is in the conversation and the importance of being included, to go through all the social determinants of health or just the barriers that exist sometimes for participation in programs like these and others. You can flip to the next one, please. We have taken the task and the challenge to invite Coloradans to provide their input. As an immigrant myself, I know that sometimes, language was one of the critical barriers of my participation. And then we add like, I don't know what this is. And then we add like, I don't know if I want to join because they're going to ask me for something else. And I want to help, but then they're going to know my name and they're going to know my phone number and they're going to know what I think. So a lot of the things that we do feels like very natural for some and very unique for others. Where basically, as Ross said, we're meeting people where they are. So we are talking to people that live in Colorado in festivals, outside of their church, inside of their church, school setting, at a bar, a restaurant, at a festival, at an event. And we got the invitation and we rapidly just took it on to just talk to people and tell them that, hey, this thing is happening. We can flip to the next one, please. And as you can tell, sometimes people say, giving my opinion is simple. As I tell my kids and colleagues, it's like, it's always easier to criticize than to create, right? So we're not asking you to create the plan. We're just asking you to take a look and what do you think? And it's totally okay if you don't like certain aspects of it. This is actually your opportunity to tell the world, the people that created it, in a formal, strategic, and unique way that it will be taken as is, what you think about it. So we continue to talk to people that says, I have no idea this was happening. I don't even know why this was happening. I'm pleased to know it's happening. Or now that I know it's happening, I have a serious opinion of why you didn't consider this, what you didn't took on that. You can flip to the next one. And as you can tell through the pictures, to the things, we are not doing anything extraordinary, unless, of course, ordinary is, posting something on a website, right? So we are doing extraordinary things that we are utilizing our Facebook page. We're utilizing our internal unique ways of communicating with our already established audience, which sometimes is WhatsApp groups, sometimes are text messaging groups. We have a radio show. We place content in some of the magazines and newspapers that you see there, and we're telling them like, hey, this is happening with or without your input. So you better get on it because it's still going to happen, right? We still need to think about water, and we still need to take certain easy and very difficult considerations. So there's an opportunity for you to add on, and especially even for children that sometimes they think like, well, I don't even know if my voice matter. It's not only that it does matter, but it's also the personal commitment that you can do when it comes to, we talk about in terms of establishing policy. Sometimes it sounds like a fancy word and it lives over there with the legislature, but then it also gets converted into your personal ways of being. And we call that, yes, family policy. In our home, we don't smoke inside. Why? Because it's not cool, or because it's not good for the cat, or because it just, grandma doesn't like it. We, of course, are advocates of public health, and we bring all the health component that says this is the reasons why you should have a policy of not smoking inside your house, or not wearing your shoes, or not anything that it fits you and allows you to take decisions, it's supported by the decision of more than one. You can go to the next one. So this is, this is a picture of some of the content that we place in one of our partners, El Comercio de Colorado, that it goes out to a lot of people throughout the state in English and Spanish. So what we're doing is similar of what you're all doing, taking the time to talk to people that we know and interrupting the space for people that we don't know. And we do that with respect. We do it with cordiality. We do it through try to be funny when needed by having a booth at a festival and having some materials and information to join. Sometimes creating workshops and webinars like the one that you are participating today. I believe this is the last one, but you want to click on the next one just to see. Oh, there's more. So we've been up and about. We are a small organization with a large reach. We do a lot of word of mouth. I'm not going to read you this slide, but as you can tell over there, we try to hyperextend our efforts when we can, and going up and above of partnering with friends, colleagues, and bugging our usual suspects and other soon to be friends, where it's like, hey, this is happening. We heard about it. I had no idea there was a water plan. I did not participate in the last one, but now I'm happen to be on a pole position for this one. So that's what happened through many different things. And our friends and colleagues are reacting very favorably when they know they should care too, and they should take action. So our input is minimal, depending on how we see it, right? Believe over 10,000 people are seeing our content somewhere here and there, and 25,000 people or more have seen it somewhere there, but we cannot even account for it. We know that we're trying to do the best we can so people get engaged. So I will invite you wherever you are in your position in this webinar to do the same. I'm an immigrant from Mexico, so myself and my team, many of them happen to speak Spanish. But of course, there's so many other languages in Colorado that I'm not speaking today. So we rely on our friends and partners and friends from other groups and places in the world to say, can you tell your family, your friends, your church congregation about this? Because this is happening. As everything in life is time. It does has a timeline, so it has to be done before the end of September. And please, if you have a comment, go here or do it there. We also came up with a way that people can write it down, and then we are going to be figuring out a way how to put it in, because some people have some barriers around the use of technology and so on. I believe this is the last one, Ross, and I don't want to take too much time on the agenda, but if you want to click on, see if there's another one. I don't know if I did that, but yeah, no, I was like, well, that's really cool. I don't know. I don't think that's my slide. So I will just end by saying it's been a pleasure to collaborate with everybody involved in this effort. All the way from the people that I have not yet met to Elizabeth Ross and many people of the team that we are finding out that we're not only aligned on what they're doing and what we're doing, but also as residents and people living in Colorado, how important it is to take care of this critical, vital resource, which is water. So thank you so much for the invitation. And I put our website in the comments, and anybody wants to catch up, talk more about what we're doing or what we could do together in the future, happy to be here. And thank you very much for the invitation to participate today.
Thank you so much, Fernando, and great to see you. And thank you so much for your team. And I will go ahead and pass things over to Stacy now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Stacy Bowe with Strategic by Nature. I'm here to facilitate the comment portion of today. So just a quick recap. The goals for today are to provide the public with an opportunity to directly communicate what's important to you with the Colorado Water Plan, to the Colorado Water Conservation Board directors that are here and staff that are here. And this is being recorded. Another goal for today, as you've caught on to, is providing an accessible and virtual forum for communities across Colorado to listen to public comments that can inform the revisions to the water plan. And just looking from people I recognize in the participant list, we have people from far reaches of Colorado here today. So thank you for taking time to be here. And we also want to provide access to specialists and people that are able to dive in deeper to the different components of the themes that Russ went over. And you have Russ and other staff experts here that can help with that today. And this is not today's focus. Today's focus is resilient planning, but we really, we designed this as 4 listening sessions to cover each focus area. But if you can only make tonight and want to talk about thriving watersheds today, that's totally fine. So we really just want to create space for people to make comment. Another thing to note is that the CWCB team is really here to listen to you. They might respond if they have a quick response or clarification as we go through the comment period, but really they're going to be using your comments to update the plan and issue responses later. We're not going to hear from them too much tonight. This is really all about you, the public, in this evening's session. Next slide, please.
Stacy, I just want to say we're resilient planning, we're practicing being adaptive. There we go, on the
Yes,
fly.
Thank you. A couple meeting agreements just to set the tone for tonight. Our goal is to equalize participation. We really want to hear from everybody. So we do have a time limit and your comments, which I'll go over in a minute. We're expecting respect in your words and your meeting conduct. Focusing on the goals for today and the content at hand. This is the Colorado Water Plan comment session. If you have other things to bring up, this is not the place. Step up and step back, basically meaning we really encourage you to make a comment and be on the record. And if you are in the queue over and over and over again, we're going to ask you to take a step back so we can let other people in line to make comments. And really, you have a time limit. We ask that you be concise and to the point. And as we heard on our interpretation, we really want people to use a conversational cadence. If you see us doing this, that means you need to stretch your words out a little bit and slow down. And that is also my reminder to say, if you haven't clicked your interpretation channel yet, the way that you do that is on the bottom of the Zoom screen toolbar, there's a globe, and you click on that and it asks you if you want to listen in English or Spanish or original audio. And if you click original audio and you speak only English and someone is speaking Spanish to make a comment, you will only hear that in Spanish. So you really only want original audio selected if you are bilingual. Otherwise, click English if you want to hear it in English, or Spanish if you want to hear the comments in Spanish. If you have questions about this, you can feel free to put that in the chat. So we're keeping everyone on mute unless it is your turn, and then we will skillfully unmute and mute again as needed. We would love to see everyone's faces when they're commenting, so please turn your video on at that point. We are recording this. The way that you will get in the Zoom or the queue for the comments is that you'll write your name and affiliation in the chat box and just indicate to us that you'd like to make a comment, and CWCB staff is helping us track the queue of who is on deck. And then from there, we will see a timer spotlighted on, I believe, Jeff's screen, and it will count you down for 4 minutes. And when your 4 minutes is up, I will politely let you know that. And if you still have more to say, you're welcome to get back into the queue again once the other people in front of you go. Another note, if you're calling in, like if you've dialed in on your phone and you're not using your computer or your smartphone, if you'd like to get in the queue, you will press *9 and that will raise your hand to let us know that you're in the queue. For everybody else, we really would like to use the chat box as the queue, and we'll have, if any CWCB staff would like to make a response to a comment, they'll be raising their hands to let me know that. Okay, I think we've got it. So our queue right now is Kelly Hendrickson and then Katie Gill. So Kelly, we'll go ahead and start with you, and Jeff will get the timer queued up. And when you start speaking, if you could say your name and your affiliation for the record, that would be fabulous. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you, Stacy. Actually, I was planning to comment in the other one, so I'm going to give somebody else plenty of time today. So thank you. Good to see you.
Okay, thank you. You're more than welcome to comment here too, if you'd like.
I'm good. I'm just listening for right now, and I will in the next one or two. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, our next is Katie Gill with Josh Kuhn on deck.
Okay, hi, thank you. I will speak more slowly this time. I'm Katie Gill and I represent Save Bear Creek Lake Park. And I really do appreciate and support the overall goals in the plan of building water security and drought resilience. I would like to see continued and increased emphasis on aquifer storage and recovery and direct potable reuse in Colorado. Wise water use will involve individual choices and government action. I'm working on both of those fronts to use water more wisely myself, and also to advocate for better water policy in my town's comprehensive plan. Resilience is a broad term and it relates to a number of different things, some of which are in conflict with each other. For example, ecosystem resilience can be undermined by surface water storage, which supports, our storage goals. Inundation of riparian areas creates serious negative ecosystem impacts. And I talked about that in the last session. As our climate continues to warm, we see, and we will see, increasing rates of evaporation from surface storage, which undermines our conservation goals. So again, I hope the CWCB will be tenacious in pursuing aquifer storage and recovery. In terms of thoughtful storage, the plan calls out multi-purpose projects for building resiliency. That's the idea behind the Bear Creek Lake reallocation study. The dam and the reservoir were primarily authorized for flood storage, but given our need to develop more drought resilience across the state, consideration is being given to reallocating some of that flood control capacity to water storage. So this is where resilient planning gets tricky, because like everything else in the plan, it requires trade-offs. As increasingly intense flood events occur, people in my community who live downstream of the Bear Creek Dam, which includes also the Denver Basin, people are very concerned about trading flood safety for water storage at this location. I do recognize the value of a solid and a flexible plan. There's a lot of time that has to be spent on planning, developing frameworks, convening groups, studying scenarios. And I hope that alongside all of that planning, we take action. And I am committed to doing my part on that. Since I have a couple more seconds, I want to add another comment generally about the water plan. And that is, there are great photos throughout that document. And I look at them and I say, oh, that looks like the Gunnison, or, oh, this looks like, I'm trying to place those rivers and watersheds that I know and that I've visited, but there aren't any captions. And I think it would be great if you guys could put captions, because then people would connect the plan to places they've been, places that are in their backyard. And, they might not recognize the picture, but if they see the caption, they say, oh, I've been to the Roaring Fork River. I know that. So that's just a side comment. And thank you. This is a huge project. It's a wicked problem. And I understand we're going to all have to make sacrifices. So thank you very much for your time. I'm out.
Thank you, Katie. I'll pause in case any staff has anything to interject. Okay. Our next person in the queue is Josh Kuhn. You are up.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm Josh Kuhn with Conservation Colorado, and I'd like to begin by thanking CWCB for the tremendous amount of hard work and thoughtfulness that the staff and the board have taken toward developing this draft version of the plan revision. As already stated in the draft plan, resilient planning will require creative solutions, and often creativity is a product of diverse conversations and brainstorming. That said, I applaud CWCB's efforts to incorporate equity, diversity, and inclusion throughout this plan, and especially in this resilient planning subtopic. This is a great starting point for ensuring our state is on the pathway for having an equitable, water-secure future. As the plan becomes implemented, this means more people, especially those from historically underrepresented communities, will be involved in the identification of problems and development of potential solutions. To help achieve this vision, the concept of an online educational resource outlined in Agency Action 4.1 is an excellent foundation. But to take it a step further, I suggest more closely aligning it with Agency Action 2.1 under the Robust Ag subtopic of expanding water conservation, education, and peer-to-peer programs that enhance innovation. Doing so will result in an actionable cross-cutting strategy, helping to advance awareness and working towards creating a pipeline of concerned residents, working towards creating solutions. Another suggestion concerns the long-term stability of basin roundtables mentioned in Action 4.2. While recognizing the importance of these forums and the important role they play in representing their community needs, I believe there's room for improvement by outlining a strategy for greater diversity and more inclusiveness within the Basin Roundtables. For example, the membership of Basin Roundtables are not fully representative or reflective of the diversity of the local communities that they serve and represent. To help modify the Basin Roundtables, Action 4.2 should build off the great work that's already called out in the Making Deeper Connections box at the bottom of page 6-44 and Action 4.6. Specifically, CWCB and Basin Roundtable leadership could coordinate with groups like the Environmental Justice Advocacy Board, the Outdoor Equity Council, Great Outdoors Colorado, among others, to explore ways of making their membership more representative of their respective communities. And now I want to transition to the topic of nature-based solutions. I'd like to applaud the draft for doing a great job of including nature-based solutions under the sections for meeting future water needs, but given the multitude of benefits from nature-based solutions, I suggest it's worthy of being an agency action. For example, nature-based solutions can advance goals related to enhancing flood protection, protection of existing reservoirs from sediment and debris flows associated with wildfire events. And nature-based solutions can also benefit water users by slowing runoff under a changing climate and more closely mimicking historical patterns. In order to keep the wonderful formatting that exists of having 10 actions, I suggest removing Action 4.7, which is updating scenarios, since that's already largely contained in Action 5.1, updating the analysis and technical update. So again, I would like to thank the staff and board for all of your hard work that you do, and also for considering my comments.
Thank you, Josh. All right, so again, if anyone would like to be in the queue to make a comment, please write your name in the chat and let us know, or if you're calling in If you've dialed in on a phone, you can select *9 on your phone and it will let you raise your hand. We don't have anyone on deck right now, so we are just kind of in a mode of keeping the line open until 6 p.m. So if people join us after work or whatever, we can have the opportunity to listen to them. So this is your chance. And if we have no one in the queue, we will just sit here on the line. So just keep that in mind. We have Victor Galvin. If you want to go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today and considering my comments. First and foremost, want to introduce myself. My name is Victor Galvan. I'm with Protégete at Conservation Colorado. Our goal is really to make sure that the Latino voice is heard at the table, and especially as it comes to this water plan. Want to thank you all for the work and effort that has gone to building out this intricate plan. We want to make sure that in the transitions that are happening to conserve water in Colorado and from the water basin, the Colorado water basin, that we consider the people that it's affecting, especially the workers, especially workers that are picking our crops and ensuring that our nation is fed. Many of these workers are immigrants and come to this country through visas, and we want to make sure that a just transition is implemented correctly and justly through the water plan. Furthermore, the impact that this plan will have on individuals, we want you to consider low-income families of color throughout Colorado, that in preparation for conserving water on the personal level, that you are looking at, governing that really considers their economic capabilities. Many of times when there is efforts to conserve water across the nation, that has rested on individuals to make sure that their personal infrastructure in their homes, their yards are up to date, and that there isn't waste of water. Many of times we've seen, like in Arizona, where people are ticketed for leaky faucets, not leaky faucets, but leaky runoff on their properties, whether it's from watering their lawns or any of the sort, that they're not negatively impacted by penalties that would come from enforcement of these laws. And just want to consider of like educating community instead of punishing them for the overuse or the misuse of water. And furthermore, that we step away from this idea that the 25% goal coming from the water basin is going to come from individuals. We know that this needs to come a societal change in the way that we eat our food, farm our crops, and in those transitions, we want to make sure that the folks that are impacted at the bottom are looked after. So in these transitions, just keeping in mind the workers that day to day are handling the water and working the fields, and making sure that we are getting the access to food that we need, and not punishing those folks for their place in life, and making sure that there is actual plans to transition them, same as we see the plans that there will be for agriculture and farmers, that we're thinking very clearly about how we're going to make those initiatives to make sure that the towns and the places in which these workers are from are nourished and financially stable when these plans are put into place.
Thank you, Victor. All right, anyone else, please put your name in the chat and your affiliation, and or select *9 on your phone, and we'll get you in the queue.
Stacy, I'll just add that for our friends who are joining us that were a part of the last meeting, you may notice we changed our time from 3 minutes to 4 minutes. And I know Katie, when she spoke, said she would speak slower, and we wanted to allow that extra time for that. With the number of people that are coming tonight, we probably could have plugged in more time, but we wanted to at least allow a healthy amount of time so people could speak slower for translation. So Katie, Josh, and Victor, thank you so much for your comments, and good to see you all.
Russ, do you have anything else to say to prompt some comments out of the group?
One thing I was thinking of that I didn't mention that I try to mention every time is it's really easy to look at each of those 4 areas of the plan, those 4 action areas, and think of them as, or maybe the takeaway is immediately that those are siloed. But I just want to, go out of the way to say that's so far from the truth. All 4 of those areas are intricately connected, intertwined in ways that are really interdependent upon one another. So when we think about vibrant communities, there are streams running through our communities. There are people, there are climate issues that cities are facing. There's local food that we are purchasing from ag communities, and how cities grow are going to impact all of us. And the folks in our city centers are traveling to our environmental areas to recreate. So all of these areas, you can make similar statements for each, but I will say that's an important point to make, is we functionally separated them, but they're obviously very integrated. And I see Katie came on again, so I'll give her the floor.
Thanks, Russ. And I'll just note, since we don't have a long line of commenters, that if you need to go a little bit over the 4 minutes, that's totally fine. Go ahead.
Thank you. So this is not a comment I prepared in advance because I was trying to stick to the resiliency thing, but I mean, obviously they're all related to each other. And so I wanted to touch base on something that I heard at the last meeting, the last listening session, and it was a gentleman from the Green Latinos talking about outdoor equity and equity in general, but specifically in this plan, there's outdoor equity, and there's the water equity task force called out in the plan. And what the gentleman, I forget his name, from the Green Latinos talked about was how he said, we all use water, we all use our watersheds and our rivers in different ways. And he was addressing, I think, the recreational goals that people had mentioned regarding things like in-stream diversions to support, recreation, kayaking and rafting on rivers. And he said, that's not how everybody uses these rivers. And that, I'm with Save Bear Creek Lake Park. And the thing that people in my community value about the stretch of Bear Creek, which is in the Bear Creek Lake Park, is it's not particularly navigable. You can kayak it at high water if the park rangers aren't watching, but it does present a lot of recreational opportunities in terms of picnicking, just being by a moving river, being in a riparian ecosystem where you hear the water and you see the birds, and it's affordable for all kinds of families to come out and spend the day next to a living river. And that value is really important, and it's a recreational piece, but we often talk about rivers and recreation in terms of, paddling them, floating down them. And that takes a certain amount of money and privilege, in a sense, to experience rivers in that way. And so I really think that the Bear Creek corridor through the Bear Creek Lake Park is a great example of outdoor equity, because it's so accessible to wide variety of people for a lot of different uses. I was off topic somewhat, but since we have the time, and I thought I would take that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie. All right, so if you'd like to make a comment, you can write your name and affiliation in the chat or select *9 on your phone. And we will be just hanging out for a little bit until someone works up the courage or decides to break the silence. We will be here. Russ, do you want to say any of your closing, like what to do next after today in case people want to drop off?
Sure. And now I thank you because that's a good prompt, but I'm not sure. I went back and remembered what we said before, but I think the main points that we wanted to hit on is, this isn't your only chance to comment. You can certainly do that online anytime. If Engage CWCB doesn't work for you and you'd rather just email us, we can take things that way. We're hoping that we can get, just because when we get a massive influx of comments, it's easier to have those kind of funneled. So we do have a survey up online. There's a few ways that you can interact with that survey. I'll briefly cover those and then turn things over to Drew if he's wanting to speak. But option one is if you just have a general comment, you can kind of select general comment as the first option and kind of put an open field text box. We get a lot of comments that way and kind of experience, even based on the base implementation plans, maybe as much as 80% of our comments come from that. And they really run the gambit. We might just have a general thought about something, or we may have something that's a little bit more detailed, even down to an edit. So that's one way. Second way, in that same survey, you can click that you have detailed edits and you can go chapter by chapter and give us kind of, a deeper dive. Or if you're representing a group, Katie, maybe this is an example for your group or others where you have a lot of comments coming, you want to upload, something like a letter or some batch comments. There's a way you can upload a PDF and do that too. So we hope you'll use the survey or reach out to us in other ways. And certainly if there's any questions along the way, happy to field those if you didn't get them in tonight or take them up at another listening session. So Drew, it looks like you may have something for us.
Go ahead. Oh, Drew, you're on mute.
Now can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, great. Hi. My comments actually are more relevant to the watershed type of, I think that's the next meeting down the road.
That's great.
But I want to take the opportunity anyway. Also, an earlier speaker mentioned making sure to include natural processes, using nature to help keep our water and develop it. Anyway, my Facebook page is about all I have on my project, which I tried to get started 2 years ago, but we had a pandemic, and finally getting around to it. The Hayman burn scar and the Buffalo Creek burn scar are two that have not fared well in the last 20 to 26 years. And as someone who has a permaculture design certificate, whatever, it occurred to me that, what we need to do is go up there and fix those logs so they capture more water, more debris, build soil, give a place for the trees to return, because with the barren condition they're in, if you have snow or if you have rain on there, a lot of that, maybe most of it, evaporates. So this is a way not to just conserve our water. This is to like, hey, we can hold on to the water that falls. If it falls in a forest, you don't have that evaporation problem. Plus trees send roots deep into the ground, which allows water to infiltrate the ground, even the rocks, and that eventually will come out as a seep or a spring. So anyway, that's what my group is about. I just want to look for groups that want to do something, like I wanted to do something, besides just write a check to, Nature First or whoever. And this is a great way to get little outdoor exercise and do something you can look at and put your hands on. So the idea is to help speed up the regenerative process in the burn areas. And that's what what my little project does. And if I have a little more I can say, rather than just trying to conserve or borrow water here and there, if you want more water, then plant more forests, because forests are the best system on earth for actually generating rain. They expel things that help the rainfall. Permaculturists have been using this for decades in their design program, but also they shade the ground. The snow that falls, the rain that falls is preserved. You actually are harvesting water out of the air. So even though we have South Park and North Park and all those others, which are nice big grasslands, to the degree that they're not being used as ranches or farms, if somehow we add more forests to the state, we will have more water. And that's pretty much a short of what I've got. I'm going to have some more details come next month, I think. And I'm in the South Platte drainage basin, so that's my primary focus.
Drew, can you repeat the name of your group for the record?
Oh, Colorado DIY, that's do it yourself, forest restoration, log terracing.
Great. Thank you very much.
And you can contact me through the Facebook if you have a group that want to get involved, or if you just want to do it yourself. The instructions are there.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right. So next we have Kelly Hendrickson. And for those of you that just joined us, if you'd like to make a comment, if you could please write your name and affiliation in the chat box, we'll get you on deck to make a comment. Kelly, go ahead.
Hey, thank you. And sorry, I'm a little slow on the commenting here, Stacy, but since you have some time. Callie Hendrickson, I work for the White River and Douglas Creek Conservation District. So we're in Northwest Colorado in the White River Basin. The last gentleman speaking.
Yo, pues el último señor que estaba hablando me ayudó a realmente pensar en, bueno, en que sí quería compartir, porque tenemos los problemas de salud de bosques aquí en White River y es tan crítico que es
resiliency part of our water planning. So just a quick note, I'm really excited about our integrated water initiative process. And there is a big focus on the health, the forest health piece of it. So hopefully we don't have another big fire like our big fish fire that was 20 years ago. So thank you for the thought on the forestry. And I think we really need to keep a focus on that. Another piece that I would say, again, because I'm in the White River Basin, that is a critical piece. And again, it's resiliency, because while everyone needs and wants, they do need water, they also need food. And so when we talk about the agriculture piece of it, in the White River, we do not have storage of any kind. I mean, some little private reservoirs, but no major water storage for agriculture in the White River. And that really is one of our primary economic drivers these days. So how important that is, and I know that's a controversial topic, and there's a good way to do it and there's not such a good way to do it. So want to encourage the storage thing to continue as a part of the answer to resiliency in our watersheds. But thank you very much, you guys, for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay. So if you have a comment, put your name and affiliation in the comment box, or select *9 on your phone if you're calling in. And we will just hang out and keep the line open.
And Stacy, I can just riff for a little bit too, to not have dead air, but I just want to thank everybody for the comments and those, Callie, like you, some of those comments Drew made have me thinking too, and it's as do yours, but you know, I can't stress how important it is. Of course, our forests are so critical, and we have done a lot of work to try to elevate that, even into the lead up to the water plan. We talk about the Water Equity Task Force, and that was really an intentional pause to have a 1-year effort that could help us honestly uncover and understand what we didn't know and get some informed input on how to better incorporate equity, inclusivity, and diversity into the water plan. But similarly, in that same kind of timeline trajectory, we created a Forest Health White Paper, which is still up and online. That's, I think, really informative and has maybe some of the latest and greatest thought processes of, you know, where we could go next, or, you know, sometimes it's about understanding the resources that are out there or the state of the science. And so that's a great resource that I want to give kudos to all the great folks that were involved in that effort across the state, really. And several of the roundtables are specifically pretty involved in that effort. But yeah, what a critical need. And when I think about, you know, how we're going to use the water, I like the way I think it was Drew that was talking about kind of the sponge kind of effect. And one of the things I'm really proud of in the water plan is not just water conservation, but, you know, kind of water conservation plus. So when we talk about One Water initiatives, we're really talking about all the things that we need to do to stretch water as far as it can go, and all the types of water that we can think about using, and using the right water, the right time, in the right place. So thinking about whether that's gray water, black water, rainwater, stormwater, you know, we think about green infrastructure, all those concepts, including water conservation, including aquifer storage and recovery, are really wrapped up into that One Water kind of thought process. And, you know, we've provided some grants on that front. Denver, City of Denver has done some great leadership in that space and just came out with a One Water plan. But I'm really encouraged around seeing how many of our counties can kind of take that step to, you know, if you don't have a comprehensive plan, I heard somebody say that, and I think it was Katie, I'm going to really work with my community to make sure that, you know, my opinions and my input is included in a comprehensive plan. I think we have to really work from that local level up to really focus on, make sure our comp plans are there, make sure that they're there and they talk about water and land use. And where possible, let's take that next step and really be thinking even more holistically about One Water initiatives that really focus on a lot of the things I've kind of heard come out tonight, but are really a thought process around green infrastructure, whether that's green infrastructure in our watersheds or in our cities. So thanks so much for those comments. And Callie, good to see you. And by all means, all the comments are great tonight, and couldn't agree with you more. You know, certainly storage is a piece. I think a lot of our friends are quick to remind us that, you know, it doesn't always have to be traditional storage. I think that's right. You know, we need to be increasingly creative and have nimble storage, but certainly that's a piece of the plans, part of the water plan grants. It's part of what's laid out for water plan grants and legislation. But obviously really thinking holistically about how we do that. Like with everything we do, I think Katie said it, you know, it's, you know, maybe not thinking about it in terms of sacrifice, but where are the opportunities to really do these things better than we've ever done it before? I love Director Dutton when she says, we've got to make water work harder for us than it's ever worked before. Right? We've got to stretch that water to maximize its benefits for people and for all the sectors, so that we're really doing, you know, our next project we fund is the best thing that we can be funding that uplifts all those areas and really does the best job to support the state. So thank you all so much for those comments.
Thanks, Russ. So like I said, we'll keep the line open here. If you have a comment, you can write your name in the chat or select *9. If you would like to sign off, that is fine. You're welcome to do so. And if you have additional comments, you can visit engagecwcb.org. And I think we'll put that, Kat just put the link to the white paper in the chat as well. All right. So we'll just hang out.
Wow, like dead air.
Thanks, Ken. It's to motivate you.
I don't have any comments at this time. Reviewing the plan though, Russ, good job for the whole team. Lot to absorb. I think one place I'd like to go is a deeper dive into the technical analysis. And the slide you used earlier showed municipal use at about 1 million, demand at about 1 million acre feet, and yet the total consumptive is about half that. I understand how that works from interactions in the past. But trying to disaggregate that for the Southwest, where we're different from the Front Range and the concentration of people and whatnot, and the return flows on the Arkansas and South Platte, I could not find links to some of the underlying technical analysis data to do that deeper dive on the individual basins. Can you help direct me there, Russ?
I can, Ken, and thank you. Thanks for being here. And also always very understated. Ken is always one of the smartest people in the room, and I always appreciate his input. Yeah, a couple of things. You gave me some good space to go. One, I do think as we got up the water plan, we might have killed the link for the technical update. So we just got that put back up. So I'll ask one of my colleagues to throw that in the chat because it is back up and you can dig down into some of that data. And if you're not seeing something you need, let us know, of course. I can't help but, when we talk about this topic of resilient planning, I always think about your basin. I mean, I think about all the basins in the state. We're seeing climate change be so dominant, but I'm just amazed. I cannot, we think about Mancos County and zero allocation coming out of Jackson Gulch Reservoir last year. And just the amount of water that everyone got, the tribes got. I want to commend you and the good work of the roundtable for always being inclusive of the tribes. For those that don't know, both the Ute, Mountain Ute, and Southern Ute are represented on Southwest Roundtable, and we're a big part of helping us draft the language around tribal water rights that's in both the Southwest BIP and was even amended through the public comment process, working with the tribes, and then also kind of we're reviewing the language that went into the water plan. So on all those fronts, Ken, just a huge thank you to you. And I don't know if that made it in the chat yet, but if not, I will get you that information ASAP.
Great. And yeah, it's great working with the tribes here in the Southwest. They're great partners and very active. And it's good to know CWCB is working directly with them these days. Yeah, and just potentially trying to communicate the difference between demand and the potential for reuse, which I know is already being forwarded on the Front Range. I think that'll be some important planning, but I know Denver Water and others are right at the forefront. So I think your plan starts to get at that. And as I dig into it, if I can give you some specific comments before the September 30th deadline, I will, Russ. Thanks. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Ken. And you put in a good plug too, to remind everybody that the public comment period does run through September 30th. So you do have still some time. We're about just over a third of the way through the public comment period. We're also working really hard for those that are still on. I see Victor's name still on. It's been really great to get to meet Victor and know him, and seen him now at a couple of events in Denver and in Glenwood Springs. And we are doing our hardest as much as, the staff of CWCB, we talk about it being one agency, but for those that don't know, we got about 50 people. And on my team, we have about 10 of those people. And of that, about half of those are kind of the ones that are, most on the road quite a lot. So between us and as many colleagues as we can rope in, we're doing our best to get around to all the counties in Colorado and just trying to make connections. And again, as I love that statement, and I'm glad that Fernando repeated it, but to meet people where they're at and to understand the issues. And what I will say, when I've just been out at a booth, people are just happy that we're there and that we showed up in their community and that we care enough to listen to them. And we can't always, make the changes or the input that we're hearing, but I do think together, and that's really what we try to lay out in the water plan, there's every opportunity to do all the things we want, because through grant funding, we can really take those steps. You know, if we want to try something that doesn't really fit in the wheelhouse of what we do programmatically, sometimes that does fit maybe into a grant of something exploratory. And I know Ken, again, giving Ken a shout out, has been involved in a lot of great conversations about, you know, just even thinking about innovation and resilience in agriculture, and where we could do some creative thinking that would kind of help, you know, bring some, you know, ideas, grant funding for supporting ideas around that concept. So we need more of that creative thinking now more than ever from everywhere we can get it. And yes, absolutely, just always thrilled when I get to sit, and what a humble person. I always feel like I'm talking with the President of the United States when I'm talking with Chairman Harp. That's just such an amazing human being, and always very kind with his time, and great thinker. And it's been great to work with Ute, Mount Ute, and Southern Ute. When I think about Lorelei Cloud's just another amazing person, and we've been so fortunate to have them and Chairman Baker on the Water Equity Task Force and helping us along the way. It's been really great. So just want to give them a shout out while we got some time, fill some of that dead air. Talking about.
Well, Russ, how are the potential new hire applicants looking for the regional representatives that will be instrumental to forwarding our Colorado Water plan?
Love it. Yes. And I like the way you phrased that, Ken. Yeah. And also, before I would be remiss not to also thank Kathy Rawl, is such an amazing person, and always helps me just think through things, and such a go-to. Mike Preston, oh my gosh, what a great contact and liaison with the tribal community, and one who's, of course, former roundtable chair in the Southwest since the roundtable started before Ed Tolan. Good question, Ken. There's a lot of places to go there. I just, since we've got some time, highlight a few ways that I'm actually really excited about some of the funding and staffing opportunities that are coming our way. Cannot thank enough, you know, whether it's the legislature, the governor, DNR Director Gibbs, our board, Director Mitchell, you know, all the support that we're seeing to kind of coalesce around not just the funding that's available federally, but making more money, even if that's match funding or capacity building funds locally, and trying to kind of reduce the roadblocks to getting that funding out the door, which is often the biggest problem, or that, you know, the capacity is an issue we hear a lot about. So one of those that Ken was nice enough to bring up is the regional coordinators. So we do have 4 regional coordinators that are, I think the positions just closed last night, I think, actually. So hopefully, you know, of course, the next month or so, we'll have those folks on board. The idea there is they'll be the first kind of CWCB staffers that actually get to live regionally. So we'd have, you know, more folks kind of embedded locally. We do our best to travel around, but it's also nice, you know, Ken, when you have somebody just that's kind of in your area that you could call up and could more easily drive to get to you sooner and answer a question. So, you know, when the water plan first came out, we didn't have water plan grants, and then those came on, and that created a huge amount of work. And I think that this is kind of in some ways an attempt to spread that load out, and also be more effective, and also provide more regional support to roundtables, or really anyone that's looking to get a water plan grant specifically. And then I think they'll also be a pretty critical liaison for just understanding the lay of the land and different funding opportunities, and being able to kind of you know, shepherd people to the right resources or right contacts if something isn't a fit in a water plan grant category, for example, including roundtables. So on that note, there's also a new infusion of funds, again, thanks to Governor Director Gibbs, our board, for really having the foresight to make a $17 million infusion into Water Supply Reserve Fund. So that's money that it's really severance tax funded dollars, and we just kind of had this windfall after several years of little to no funding, and really projections that it may continue for some time. So we kind of came up with some stabilizing funding mechanisms to provide some consistency and stability for roundtables to plan around. But now with this infusion, we'll have the ability to bring additional funding up for roundtables, and then bring back a statewide matching account that I think will be critical in the 2 areas that we're going to really try to funnel those statewide matching funds or additional grant funding opportunity will be around aging infrastructure, which is such a critical need. We talk about that 740,000 acre foot gap every year. Any number of things could conspire to make that bigger, and failing infrastructure is one of those. So shoring up infrastructure and knowing that we don't always have a direct mechanism to always easily fund that. WSRF is one of those. So having some money set aside, significant chunk in statewide match would be, I think, help meet a lot of need. And then the other category is drought resilience, which is another thing I think we've heard about a lot. And of all those categories of water plan grants, we do fund drought plans and water conservation, but we don't really specifically address drought resilience. So I'm kind of seeing those two buckets, and we'll be having conversations at our September board meeting with the board and meeting with others before, but really is kind of a structural and non-structural categories to really help fund some of the need that's out there. And a lot of this information is up on CWCB or has been talked about at our recent board meetings. There's also some capacity building funding that the legislature put out there, and that has several flavors, but can go to support local grassroots funding to help leverage to get some of the additional IIJA or BIL bill funding. This is the federal infrastructure money that's come through. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, unprecedented level of funding. And as we've gone through the BIP and now leading that into the water plan and seeing over 1,800 projects across the state, and those are just the ones we know of. And we're not constrained by those. There's those that are on the projects list or aren't could still get funding, but at least having a starting block to say we really need to dive into those. I'm hoping we can advance those. And Ken, I think those regional coordinators will hopefully be able to help do some of that too.
Yeah, I think both the funding and the coordinators will be great, Russ. Really appreciate where you're leading with the rest of CWCB in support of these projects. I'll probably see you guys on another open forum, but thanks for hanging in there, and I will be in touch later, and I'll contact Kara separately on my technical questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ken. Okay, so we'll just keep hanging tight unless anyone else has any questions or comments. Thanks for your patience and feel free to hop off. Thank you.
Stacy, and myself, I'm thinking about just reminiscing about some of the things we were just talking about with Ken. But as I think about our tribal partners, I think about Lorelei. I remember, and this is years ago now, but it was at a Colorado River Water Users Association meeting, and Lorelei was there speaking, part of the 10 Tribe study. And afterwards, she was talking with Amy Ostick and I, and she just made the comment, and I think not necessarily aimed at Colorado specifically, but just broadly, that a lot of times the tribes just aren't asked, and it's so nice to be asked to come to the table and treated as sovereign partners and equals. And I think that what we're trying to set up and tee up in the water plan this time, and with input from Ute, Mountain Ute, Southern Ute, is really just to set that stage for everybody. You know, that acknowledgement that we're asking everyone to be a part of this and to help us, because the things that we can get done, you know, if we create a tool, it's the same principle. It's only as helpful as it's getting used and it's making a difference. And so I'm encouraged when I hear, you know, stakeholders across the state say, Chris Stern created this, you know, fluvial hazards mapping tool, and that's being used to, you know, or they're thinking about embedding that into local code planning. And those are the kinds of things that really show where we can help local stakeholders take things to the next level, maybe add some firepower, some support, or speed things along. And that's maybe where we realize our highest value. And hopefully the water plan is broad enough to allow you know, everything to kind of fit underneath it, and provide some specific support where people can point to when they need leverage to kind of advance things, or you know, something to point to of why to support things in their community. So hopefully we're setting that right tone.
Thanks, Russ. Anything else you want to say? Because you've got about 20 minutes till we close the line.
Maybe I'll hang out on mute and reminisce some more.
Okay.
My next big story. I will tell you this one just because it's a little funny story, but I don't think anyone would mind. But to the point around Chairman Hart just being one of the most amazing people and just so kind and humble with his time. But when we had a meeting with him once, he apologized to me for being late because he was talking with the president. He was literally talking with the president of the United States, and I was like, "You can, that's okay. You can be late." But it just goes to show how kind and humble and what a great partner, and how lucky we've been to make those connections and to help be those stewards that can help build those trusts in those communities. And I'm just so grateful to, you know, again, specifically thinking of Chairman Hart, but, you know, all the folks on that team, Peter Ortega, Ernest House Jr., who, if people don't know, is just announced as one of the newest, and I believe the first Indigenous member of the Interbasin Compact Committee, which is, you know, probably didn't get huge headlines, but probably deserves it. And what, again, such an amazing leader in our state, just great ideas, and really works in that space that I think, you know, a lot of us and people I see on this call still try to do, of mining the middle to find the solution spaces that are going to work for everyone. So big thanks to everybody that participated, into the tribe specifically.
Thanks, Russ.
And Stacy, I think last time I think maybe called things slightly early. So if we want to wait till maybe 5:45, maybe that gives people time. I don't know that many people will join in the final minutes.
That sounds fine. So we have about 10 minutes left if anyone else wants to say anything else while they're here. This is a great opportunity.
Maybe to make, you know, as a conversation starter too, or at least just some more information as I'm reading back through the resilient planning vision. We talk a lot about water security roadmaps, and that concept is really embedded in some of the discussions our board's been having, and then we kind of ultimately folded into the water plan about just drought resilience writ large. And so I think there's some really interesting work to be done. I'm very excited about Chris Sturm's work on her watershed side for wildfire ready watersheds. And I think that there's a bit of a model in there for how we could expand some of that good work to think about drought in our communities and susceptibility. And again, we need all that firepower at the basin level to kind of help us advance local projects that are ultimately going to build greater resilience. But if we can help provide tools that highlight, susceptible areas, and we're thinking about, our disproportionately impacted communities as well, and a lot of that planning and thought process, maybe that can serve as a bit of a conversation starter. Maybe that can scale to some of the good work the roundtables have done, or other groups have done for that matter. DOLO's works in the Southwest specifically and around the state on kind of resilient plans as well. And where there are ideas around projects, where those kind of center on water, I think there's some good work to do to be thinking about, how we kind of channel that down. If you could fund 1 or 2 or 3 or, top 10 things, what are those things? And how do we work with our local elected officials and kind of get some synergies across communities, across, more of a regional scale, across counties, to think about, getting local attention on the top things that need to be funded. Because as our director, Greg Felt, says, the good work happens at the local level. And I believe that with all my heart. And hopefully we're setting some pathways and with this kind of vision specifically to help set the stage for more of that and getting more of that buy-in. And as we've presented to groups like CCI, county officials across the state, I think that there's a lot of interest in that. And sometimes there's feedback we hear of just too broad. There's so much, what are the things to focus on? So if we can get some group thinking, local stakeholders to help highlight what are the, critical areas maybe that can roll up at a more granular level and ultimately speak to regional scale issues in a way that can kind of acknowledge the water plan speaks regionally, but is also sometimes flying at a more 30,000 foot view. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there to encourage by, and as Brad Udall always reminds us, that you can't depress people into action. So I think there's a lot of hope in the water plan as much as there is some tough facts, but they just are. It's getting warmer, it's getting drier, but I think there are a lot of things that we can do if we work together collaboratively.
Russ, in our closing minutes, can you give us one more rundown of the ways to comment?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you certainly can always reach out, the best way is probably to go through engagecwcb.org. And if you go on there and hit on comment on the water plan, you can read the plan. You can submit a survey. There's a link for a survey that's in English and Spanish. And you kind of have 3 levels that you can access there. General comment, which is just an open field box. We don't ask for a lot of personal information. I appreciated that Fernando kind of touched on that. We've tried to be more sensitive to that. I mean, it's helpful to have information that we can sort of just understanding, where info is coming to us from, but also we didn't want that to be a barrier. So there's some pretty generalized ways to get into that survey and just provide your 2 cents. And that can be, whatever you want it to be. A high level thought on something that's important to you, a specific edit of something you need to see in the plan, or a general thought of something that you're not seeing in the plan. And as I've skimmed through some of those comments, just glancing at what we got so far, I've seen all of those things and more. So you can do that. You can make a specific section by section edit kind of level comment, or you don't have to click all the boxes. If you just want to go to a few of the sections, you can do that. I will say, if you got 10 minutes or 15 minutes with the water plan, your time is probably best spent on just the chapter 1's pretty short intro. And chapter 6 is really, where all the meat of the actions are. A lot of the rest of it's kind of context setting or directing where we go down the road. But a lot of that will kind of collapse as we do an executive summary near the end. And then if you're someone out there that's, representing an NGO or a group, or you have a letter, there's that option too. You can kind of upload a PDF of, collection of comments or a letter that you want to provide. So we tried to, learning from the last water plan and the many ways that comments came to us, we tried to allow all 3 of those options.
Thank you, Russ. we'll hang out for a couple more minutes and then we're going to close it out. So those of you that are still here, thank you so much for your time and for being here to provide comment or just listen to comments. It's really great to see so many people on the line. So thank you.
Well, before the final Jeopardy music comes in and we close things out, I'll just say again, thanks to everybody who joined today, for those that are still hanging out with us. And just wanted to, thanks to all the great work. Again, it's sometimes we get praised specifically, and I want to give a lot of kudos to my team for all their hard work. But this is really a team effort that extends to so many more people, even outside of CWCB, all the other agencies that have partnered with us, the roundtable work, NGO community, and many, many others. And we're hopefully continuing just to grow that tent even bigger. And you're a part of helping make that happen. So thanks for your time. Thanks for your comments. Please, if you have anything written for us, get that in by September 30th. We will kind of take some notes on what we heard today too and fold that in. Our general comments will be things that we can aggregate and maybe roll up to, here's the kind of categories of things that we heard about to board members or elected officials, but specific edits are the kinds of things that we'll be looking to go in and see where we can make tweaks. And we may not be able to make everything that we hear, but we certainly are value all the input we get, and we'll do our best to kind of take that in and see what we can do. I like the comment we heard of even just no comments too small. I thought that was great to just think about captions on pictures. So thanks to everybody for being here, and again, help us in your roles and everything you're doing to spread the word. And more, there's nothing but to gain from more people knowing about water, being connected to water, knowing where their water comes from, protecting it. So you're all a part of helping us spread that good word and really implementing the water plan. So thanks.
Thank you. I think we're ready to close it. So we will see everyone at the next listening session. Don't have the date in front of me. It's the 28th.
September 1st.
September
And then
1st.
And the last one and fourth one is September 28th.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.